So today I'm going to show you how to make what I call my Sasha purse. So it's a very easy purse. This is one that is my personal bag, so it's been pre-loved. So if it looks like it's got a little bit of wear, it's because I've worn the heck out of it, but it's the only one that I have handy that didn't sell. So I'm going to show you, this purse takes one skein of yarn. So if you've got one skein of Amorino Fios yarn, you can make a purse with it. So I'm going to start off in our bubblegum color, and I will end up finishing in the moss green color. So this purse is fun because you can make it as wide as you want it, as tall as you want it, as deep. So I'll show you along the way how to make any adjustments that you might want, but it's a pretty easy bag. It's just a simple repeat for the whole thing. So if you know how to single crochet, you should be able to make this purse just fine. I add 2 magnetic closures to keep it secure. I don't line my bags because the t-shirt yarn is dense enough, nothing falls through. So yeah, let's get into it. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I want to show you this up front. So if you want to make it bigger or smaller, you know how to make that transition a little easier. So when you chain 45, your purse will be about 18 inches by 9 1/4 for 15 rows. So what that means is once we have all of that completed, you're going to fold your purse just like this, and that is going to be the structure of your bag. So the reason I wanted to tell you this ahead of time is if you wanted a taller purse, then you would chain more, or if you wanted a smaller purse, you would chain less. Just make sure you're chaining an odd number. And again, if you wanted it less wide, then you won't do 15 rows. You can do 14, 13, 12, however many rows that you want. But this is the size of the purse. And again, you don't have to, super versatile. So if you wanted more purse, you could fold it up a little bit bigger like that and put your buttons there. You don't have to fold it, the flap over the whole thing. So yeah, just wanted to kind of give you that heads up before we get started. So we are going to go ahead and chain 46. And when we're chaining with the t-shirt yarn, you don't want to be too tight or too loose, of course, but I would err on the side of too loose than too tight because you don't want it to curl up. But what I do is I chain and just give it a little tug, just so that it's not giving you a hard time going through that next loop. So I'll do a few here and show you. Curls a little bit, but you give it a pull and it straightens right out. So that's the sweet spot. That's how you know you've got good tension with your chain. See, this one's a little tight, so I'll just give it a little pull. We're going to go ahead and chain 46. Make sure that you chain an even number. Again, you can make it as big or as small as you'd like. Just make sure you're chaining an even number. So I will meet you back at my 46 chains. So this is how my chain looks without stretching it. I wanted to show you so that you weren't freaked out if it wasn't perfectly straight. Mine looks like an earthworm right now, actually. But if you take it and you just give it a little stretch, it straightens out pretty good. So just as long as it's not curling up on you, you are good. So this is 46 chains. And again, that's going to give you a purse like I showed earlier in size. So if you want it bigger or smaller, chain more or less, just make sure it's an even number. So from here, we're going to work on the back bumps. So we're going to work into the back bumps here. Typically when we work our chain row, we're working into this top, what are these called? Brain blank, but we're working into the top stitch here, but we're going to work in these back bumps. This pattern is very easy. If you can single crochet, you can make this purse. So each of our rows will start and end with a single crochet, and it'll be a simple 2-stitch repeat throughout. So we're going to go to this very first bump here. So we're not going to skip any of the bumps. So if you move that yarn out of the way, you can see that very first bump. That's where we're going to work a single crochet into. So you might want to give yourself a little bit of tug on this last loop here. Single crochet right into that bump. It might be a little bit tricky to get into, but right in there, work your single crochet. With t-shirt yarn, pull up a nice loop, and so that's our first single crochet. So now the repeat will be single crochet, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next bump, and then we're going to go back to that skip stitch and work a single crochet there. So very easy. So we're going to skip that next bump and just single crochet into that third bump there. Pull up a nice long loop. It's about 1 inch. I'm pulling up there. Yarn over, pull through, and then we're going to go back to that skipped bump that's right in between there, and we're going to single crochet right into that. You can kind of see where I'm coming out there. Now this stitch is where you really want to pull up that long loop. You basically want the loop that you're pulling up to be in line with the loop on your hook. So if you find that you are sort of pointed down and you've got sort of a loose loop, then you're not pulling up enough. Right? So don't be afraid to give yourself like 2 inches there. Yarn over, pull through, and then I just kind of straighten that. So I'll show you that again. So we're going to skip this next bump and single crochet into that second one. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Then we're going back to that bump that's right in that space there. And single crochet right into that one. Pull up a nice long loop, yarn over, pull through. So this is giving us our repeat, and it's kind of creating that pattern. So I'm going to go back to my moss green example here. I want to show you it's important to have a nice clean stitch for this second single crochet that we're doing, because that's going to create that nice clean pattern for us. So in order to get that, it's important that you have your working yarn seam side up on your finger. That's kind of that's the most important thing I've learned with crocheting with t-shirt yarn, is having that seam side up, so that when you go into your stitch and you're grabbing that yarn, you're grabbing that seam side, and it's going to allow that clean side to come up each time. So we'll go back in. Going to be a bit of a pain, of course. And we're grabbing that yarn, and we're pulling up a nice long loop, and that's the clean side coming up, yarn over, pull through, and then I just use my thumb to sort of just straighten it there. So you see how that gives you that nice clean pattern. So if you were to go in, you know, let's say on that second stitch that you go in and you've got your yarn twisted up a bit and you've got the seam side down, and you grab it, that seam is going to come out. No, it twisted the right way, but see how you'll be able to kind of see that seam there. So it will make a difference of the finished product. Obviously it's still going to be a beautiful, you know, well-structured purse, but it's going to have a little bit of a messier look to it. So I think it's important to learn that early and sort of practice that with t-shirt yarn. It really does make a difference with your product when you have nice even stitches. Pull up that loop and see what I mean by fixing it. See, that one came up and it's sort of sitting on top of that first line there. So I just take my thumb and just give it a little push down. That's it. And that kind of gives you your repeat there, or your pattern. So let me get that one out of the way. And we're just going to continue all the way down, skipping a stitch, single crochet into the second one, go back into that skipped stitch, and single crochet into it. And if it helps anyone, I will measure how much I'm pulling up here. So I've got about, a little bit tough to do because I do give it a pull. So I've got about 1.5 inches worth of yarn there. Maybe a little more depending on, you know, how much I'm pulling it. So don't be afraid to give it a nice long stitch, because that's really going to be the shining star of your purse, is that second stitch. So I'm going to work this all the way down, and when we're finished, we should have 22 repeats and 1 single crochet at the end to do. So I'm going to finish this row and I will meet you there. So I'm at the end here, finishing up my last repeat, and I have room for, got one more bump there, which will be our last single crochet. So I should have 22 repeats, and now I wanted to show you before I gave it any tug that I do have an arch here. And now it might mean that my chain was a little too tight, but I do find with this purse that once you finish all of your rows, it really does even out pretty well. So as long as when you give it a tug, it goes fairly straight, it's not a big deal. You know, don't panic and feel like you have to undo it. I mean, unless it's like a really tight arch, or when you give it a tug, it's not straightening out, then you might want to consider. But with this green one too, I had the same thing. So it's just par for the course. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 22. Perfect. So I've got 22 repeats. I've got my single crochet here on the beginning, and then I'm going to do 1 single crochet on our last bump here at the end. And see, I'm not being shy with that single crochet at the end. It's right in line with the loop on my hook. What this is creating this seam here on the end, and that will be pretty prominent on your purse. So that's another important seam, and you know, you want to make sure that you've got that clean side up, because it will be pretty visible when we're done with our purse. So I finished that last single crochet. I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn. Okay, so this is what the back side is looking like. So front and back, and we're going back and forth. So in the end, you'll see what side you like best. But moving into the second row, it's essentially the same thing. So we're going to go into this first single crochet. So we're going to skip that chain that we made. This first single crochet here, we're going to make 1 single crochet, nice long loop, and again we're going to skip a stitch, single crochet into that second or third stitch, nice long loop, yarn over, then we're going back to that skipped stitch, and we're going to single crochet just like we did in the first row, yarn over and pull through. And that is it, folks. That's about as complicated as it gets. So again, skip a stitch, single crochet, back to the skip stitch, and it gets easier from here. That first row is always the trickiest because there's just not as much to hang on to, but oops. But that's it. Now we're off to the races. Maybe take a couple hours sitting down and doing this, but you can have, if you had a full day, a couple of these purses pumped out in a day, which is really nice. So that is our repeat, and I do 15 rows. The way I count my rows so that when I'm done I know, because that's sometimes a little complicated too. So this nice prominent row obviously is easy to see, and then this second little row here. So to count, this is our first row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is our 15 rows here, and what it should look like when you're all done. You've got these nice clean stitches on the end here. Let me show you how to color change. I do like to make two-tone purses, sometimes right down the middle. I had somebody that wanted a striped look, so I did dark blue, light blue, dark blue, light blue, and that was just me changing colors every 2 rows. So I would do 2 rows, which really kind of looks like 1 row if you're looking at the purse, but it was 2 rows, and I would just do dark blue, light blue, dark blue, light blue. You can get kind of as fancy as you want, but I'll show you how to do that color change. Let me grab a second color. This is our sky blue color. Got handy. So we're at the end of a row, and you can see t-shirt yarn gets real twisted up, so you got to kind of untwist throughout. So we're going to go ahead like we're finishing that row, but this next row I want to have a different color. So before I complete that single crochet, I'm going to pull up the loop, then I'm going to take my new color and I'm going to finish that single crochet with that new color. And then I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and from here I'll do my single crochet like I would, skip 1, single, go back to the skipped. So now looks a little bit funky, but it won't when you're all done. Just like with this one, it's a pretty clean transition. And then you'll go through and weave in that end and cut this, weave in that end, and then weave in that starting chain end. But yeah, that's how you do your color change. Very simple. You can color change as many times as you want. So I will meet you back when you have your 15 rows done, or however many you're going to do to get the size of the purse you want. Okay, so I am at my 15 rows, and I have just enough yarn left to finish my purse. So that's why I say this purse is great. You can do it with 1 skein of yarn. If you were to make it any bigger, you would probably need a second skein, and if you were to make it smaller, you'll have a little more left over. So this should be enough to finish off our purse here. So what you want to do is mark your 28 stitches on either side. So from your last chain here, or stitch here, you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 28. So you want to put your stitch marker on your 28th stitch, and that'll give you 16 stitches left over here. And again, that's if you're doing it the same size as me, and Also mark 28th stitch here. And what this is creating is your purse and your flap. So that'll give you kind of the perfect flap ending here. So if you've made a purse this size and you want to make it a deeper purse with a shorter flap, you just mark wherever you want your purse to start and end there. Again, there are no rules here. You can make it whatever shape and size you want. So you would just mark a few more if you want it a little bit deeper or taller. So once you've got your purse marked, decide what side you want on the outside, what you want your right side to be and your wrong side. Now they both look pretty even, but if you notice, this one row here looks a little bit different on this side than it does on this side. To me, this looks a little bit messier than the other side, so I want this to be the inside of my purse. So we are going to stitch from the right side with the right side in, and then we'll turn it right side out. So I will have my clean side up while I work this next part. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, and then I'm going to fold my purse in half. Again, I've got my clean or good side on the inside right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to seam up the edge with a slip stitch. Very easy. So we're going to skip that chain that we just made and go into that last single crochet and go into that 28th stitch there. And we're just going to slip stitch right through there. Now you want to keep it pretty loose. You don't want it to be too tight because that's going to bunch up your purse. So once you, not that loose, but once you get your yarn through, give it a little tug and then go into your next stitch here, right there into that V and into the next V. And again, yarn over, give it a little tug and pull through, giving yourself some breathing room there. And we just slip stitch all the way down. Lining up your stitches. Now it's up to you if you want to fiddle with these last two. There is technically a stitch here and then one right here. So if you want to put a slip stitch through there, you can, but I really don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Let me just show you here. So what we end up with on the inside is this slip stitch. So you do have a small seam there, but you won't be able to see. And then when we flip our purse right side out, kind of give it a little poke at the corner there. See, we've got this nice edge there. So it just makes that line look on the edge. And you can do the same on the other side. But that is what your purse will look like. So we'll go ahead and seam up The other side the same way. So from here, to finish this, you can chain, cut that, and weave in that end. And then starting from this side, I like them to be even, so I'm not going to start on the bottom here, because I started on the top here. So I'll come over here, and I'll start over on the 28th and the 1st, and we'll seam down the exact same way. So for this purse, I need to add my magnetic closures on there, so I'm going to use this one. This is one I did a few days ago. I'm going to go with gunmetal, but I just have these sew-on magnetic closures, and I put one on either corner. So I'll put one here on the edge there and one up top. You kind of line it up where you want your purse to be. And when you first finish your purse, it might sit a little funky. You have to train it a little bit because t-shirt yarn is flexible, right? So wherever you want your purse to sit, that's where you'll put your magnets at. And you can use thread. I like to use fishing line. I think it's cheap, but it also lasts a long time, and it's clear, so it won't show up when you're finished with your purse. I like to use this angled hook here, or needle, because these things are a pain in the butt. So what I do is I take my fishing line, I get it on my hook, and then I'm going to tie this together so that it's doubled each time I pass it through. That is fewer times I got to go through my material. Give it a couple of knots, and I usually leave this pretty long. I'll knot this as well. I will say this is my least favorite part of doing a purse are these little finishing touches. I want to crochet all day and have somebody else do these final steps. I don't love this part, but it's part of the job. So take, I think I normally put this kind of, there's a fatter one and a thinner one. Usually put the fatter one here on this edge. And again, you put it where you want it to line up. So I might even put it in that little groove there. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Put it right in that groove right there. And again, I always try to hide it. I don't necessarily want my fishing line in this case, or thread to be seen. So I usually will go underneath one of my seams pretty well that I know will hide it. And sometimes I even pull out the pliers for this part because I don't want to waste all my hand strength sewing in these buttons, you know what I mean? So again, we're just going to go around the edge. I say 3 times. I'll usually go through one corner, and then I go under the button to get to that diagonal corner. Do that one until I get through all 4. Then I do the top. And we're all set. So I'm going to finish this off. And I will show you the finished product when I'm all done. But just so you see, if you're struggling, So am I. There should be a service offered for people that love to do this stuff. I mean, I don't know who could possibly love to do this, but if you're out there, message me. We can collab. So that is one of my buttons done. So I went through 2 or 3 times, and I did end up having to pull out the pliers because it is challenging on my hands, but I'll do that 2 more times and that'll be them closed. And then I usually get these O-rings, the spring O-rings. I've only got these smaller ones in the gunmetal. Typically we use a bigger size, but you just find a place on your purse that's kind of even on each side, and I insert a ring. There's not necessarily like a right and a wrong, it's just where you fit it and where it looks even. I'm just doing this real quick to show you. Just get it, well, that one went sideways, but we'll pretend like that's straight. Usually have an O-ring on the top of each, and then you can just attach your chain. It's as simple as that. So you've got yourself a really pretty purse. With one skein of yarn, obviously you need more than one if you want 2 colors, but yeah, 1 skein, 1 purse, half a day, and you're good. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have and would love to hear your feedback.